Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We're not used to having a full house, so thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to call to order Woodstock's Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting for November 3rd, 2022. Whatever time you have, Amy, I got 7:36.
Correct.
All right, good. So we have called to order. We're going to have to go through our roll call. So I'm going to start with commissioners who are here in person, and then we'll recognize commissioners who are joining us by Zoom. Mr. Young, do you mind starting us out in the roll call?
Timothy Young,
Mark Blackmore.
Joseph Adeletta, Dean Gould,
Sid Ludget.
Jeff Gordon,
Jeffrey Marcotte,
Joe Palulik.
and then we'll go through the folks who are on Zoom. Doug Porter,
Here.
David Morse,
Here.
and Dwight Reinowitz.
Here.
And I'll note for the record, we have a quorum of hardworking commissioners present tonight. And I also note for the record, Nancy Frazier said she can't join us tonight, so that's why she's not here. As far as seating people, I do try to continue to go through a fair process, seating commissioners. And so next up to be seated would be, I have it listed, Dwight Reinowitz. Congratulations, Dwight. Are you going to throw a big party that usually gets thrown when you're seated?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
So we'll note that we only need one alternate seated tonight at this point in time. So we'll note that for the record. And we'll do our pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you. We do have a public hearing tonight. It's scheduled at 7:45, so we do have to wait to 7:45 to start it because that's when it's been publicly noticed. So I'll go through a couple of agenda items that we have beforehand on it. My usual thank yous to commissioners for our meetings twice a month. This is a planning meeting, which is our first Thursday meeting. It's not our business meeting per se. That's the third Thursday of the month. So I appreciate all of you guys in the work that you do. And I don't want to be remiss. I want to thank again the staff for all that you guys do at meetings, but in between meetings. So thank yous all around, my usual thank yous. I did email out and I didn't get copies printed, but I think everyone got an email that I sent out that the Freedom of Information Commission is holding a FOI Act workshop. So it's open to us to join if you wish. I've attended these during my many years on the commission. They're very good and very helpful. You can ask questions. At our annual legal training session every year, we usually do talk upon Freedom of Information Act anyway. But if you're so inclined, it's November 16th, which is a Wednesday at 7. So if you would like to, I don't know if there's a registration for this or not, but you can contact Crystal at Town Hall. If you haven't been to one of these, or you haven't been to one in a while, I would encourage you to attend. They tend to be very helpful and a lot of good Q&A. FOI is very important. We're always mindful of freedom of information stuff and the state law for it. So that is noted. I believe that's the only correspondence we've received germane for this meeting for general commission work. We have some zoning enforcement, and the only two items right now about zoning enforcement that we wanted to bring up tonight as a commission is from our last meeting, which is October 20th, our business meeting, is where we stand with zoning enforcement on Supreme Sheds and where we stand about that wedding venue. So is anything that you want to report to us, Dan?
It actually goes back a little further than the last meeting. We weren't able to jump into enforcement. My name is Dan Malo. I'm the new town zoning enforcement officer.
And I'll also introduce, if you don't know, Delia Fay, who used to serve as our zoning enforcement officer and town planner, and she is the senior regional planner for NECOG. She works with us, so. Dan, if you'd like to go ahead and update us on those two enforcement items that we wanted updates on.
The commission asked me to look into what's going on at Supreme Sheds. In 2020, in December, they received a special permit to have 6 sheds on site. It did not include the constructions of sheds. It was specifically brought up in the course of the review of that application that construction of sheds on site would require a modification of a special permit if they chose to do that in the future. We haven't received or any application for a special permit to modify what they have going on there. So after seeing where our previous zoning officer had left off in their communications, I felt it was probably best to send a request for voluntary compliance, which is a typical first step in any kind of zoning action. And there's pleases and thank yous, and it's a letter to request more information about their operation and to remind them what they had approval for. And that the course of action would be a modification of their special permit to continue doing what they're doing. I await their reply, but I hope to work with them to get them compliant. Doing what they want to do might be a difficult challenge for them to get that approval, but they need to at least try to seek that to be compliant with the zoning regulations.
Can you just let us know, remind us the date that you sent that
Yep.
letter
This letter went out today.
today? Okay. And I'll just state for the record that the applicant know that they have to come to us, because they came to us with a non-residential zoning permit. They were informed that we could not improve that because it had to be a modification of the special permit. So my understanding is they're aware of the type of permit they need to submit in order to be compliant.
Yes, Ashley Stevens, the previous zoning officer, instructed them on the same course. So hopefully the second letter gets them to come to the table and get everything above board.
Anything from commissioners? This is one of our action items on the to-do list, because we do look over certain aspects that have to come to us. Joe?
Just a quick question, did you find a letter from Ashley?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was from April of this year.
And was it an enforcement letter?
It was no a request for voluntary compliance, but that it has gone past 6 months. It was probably fresh to start, appropriate to start with a fresh request for voluntary compliance. Skipping that step, if we had to follow through all the way on enforcement, skipping that step, going straight to a violation could be problematic. But really, we want to all get along, and hopefully they see a new name on the letterhead and see what I'm about, and we can work together.
How much time are you giving them to reply?
The mail gets around pretty quick, so I hope to hear from them in the next week, I think, but within 15 days is typically too long. Then the next type of letter goes out.
And then things get ramped up more, and we have to start making bigger decisions.
Yep.
What to do enforcement as a
And
commission. But you're handling it right now as the CEO, which is the process to handle. So do you have an update for us for the business meeting in 2 weeks? Well, if you've heard from them and not heard from
yeah,
them.
I'll be able to tell you that much.
Okay. Just so the commission is reminded of our process, if we don't hear, then we're gonna have to decide next steps.
Sure.
So there are next steps in the process, so we'll have to be dealt with how it's gonna be adjudicated. So, okay, well, thank you for that. Hopefully we'll hear. And about the wedding venue thing, is there any update on that?
Yeah, there's not a lot of information to go on. If more people have seen something that would help me. Because right now this looks to be stagnant and that this is no longer occurring. After they had a conversation with Delia earlier in the year, but I'm not too sure. I think the best course would probably be to pick up on where Delia left off in email communications. Just to, what they want to do there is have a wedding venue. They have less than an acre of space and they're surrounded by conservation easement. For the non-residential use, they need a minimum acre and a half. I'm sorry, an acre and a quarter. And that adjacent conservation easement land, though, in the name of a trust is not an appropriate activity in the easement. It would constitute an encroachment.
Did a letter go out to them at all? There was a question about whether a letter went out or not when Ashley was the CEO.
I couldn't find the letter.
Okay. Would be in file.
So I've drafted a letter, but I want to gather more information to see if it's going on still. And that includes reaching out by the email that's still in the folder to see if it's their intention to continue or if they've set the idea aside.
Anything from commissioners on this item? Joe?
Just a quick question on the date of the email, approximately. Spring of this year.
Delia, do you happen to remember
Let me see.
the summer?
There are some emails that went about. I have some copies of this. Supposedly there was an initial enforcement letter, but we've been unable to find a copy of it. That may have gone out in April. But no, it would be in the file if it was sent, I would think. But it sounds like there were some things looked into in April according to some of the emails. And the commission had gotten copies of these emails previously.
I think I have some of those in that chain. Of,
Yeah,
emails.
we can, I don't know if you're able to dig her emails up in the system.
Yeah, we cloned it. I'll,
If need be, I can get you copies. The commission had seen some of these before when this matter came up. There was some emails, I think, Delia, you were involved in it in April. And then then there was an email from July about that there was an enforcement letter sent, but no one's been able to find that letter. So we don't know if it was ever sent or not. That's the last with these things, but if you remind me, I can make copies.
Yeah.
They should be in the system.
yeah, I don't have that much.
Okay. So it sounds like you're gonna find out more about where things stand. Give us an update.
And if anyone is familiar with the issue over there, I welcome your observations.
Okay. Well, thank you on that. Anything else from commissioners? I don't want to miss any of our commissioners on Zoom. Okay. So we'll keep these as active on our meeting list as we do for all enforcement matters. And we'll go accordingly. This was not on the agenda, but I'll bring it up very quickly. I believe there's some people here who were interested about where we stand with the Airbnb enforcement matter. Just so people are reminded, we weren't necessarily going to be getting a report fully at this meeting. We did have an update at our October 20th meeting. There's a difference between these meetings that are considered planning meetings and meetings that are considered business meetings. Where we get much more in reports, the way the commission operates. However, we're aware that this is an active matter with the zoning enforcement officer. So there are two parallel tracks. One is what the commission does. The commission doesn't initially get involved in what you do, Dan, as zoning enforcement officer. We have to let that process go through, looking into enforcement matters, and then we get reports or updates. If you wanted to, because there are some people here tonight who I believe were interested in where we stood with the Airbnb matter. My understanding is from the last meeting, you're looking into it, which is required. and to gather the facts, find out what's going on. Will be giving us an update at our business meeting in 2 weeks.
Sure.
Unless there's anything else you wanted to report. My understanding is you're still actively investigating.
So we did issue the letters, and I do want to give them the 15 days. We've had some people come to the table already, and I've had some mail return. So
So just so that people know, the commission doesn't do its own investigation. We have to rely upon the zoning enforcement officer, our duly authorized agent, to go through a certain process. Things have to be done a certain way in order to be done legally and done right. Especially if, heaven forbid, we have to pull the big trigger on anything and get the lawyer involved and go to court, which we don't want to do if we can help it. So you have to have your Ts crossed and your Is dotted. There's also due process that has to be taken into account as well. So there is a process that's being followed. That's separate from anything the commission may want to do relative to changing regulations. That's a more involved process, and that's a bit separate from anything that happens with enforcement. So right now, that is still an active item on the commission's list. Getting an update on that in basically 2 weeks, when we get an update about zoning enforcement in general, in addition to these other 2 items. If anybody out in the public had any additional information they felt they needed to give to the zoning enforcement officer, or any complaints in general, that should be definitely funneled through to the land use department.
Sure.
Because that's where everything has to go initially. We're happy to hear about it and be aware of these issues. We definitely want to make certain Dan's aware of it if anybody has anything further, so he can be taking that into account for anything he has to do in the office. So thank you, Dan, for continuing to look into that. And keep that on your active list of doing stuff. I believe we have met the 7:45 mark. So we can go ahead and start the public hearing, which is one of our main items tonight, what we called for. I got to go through some process items, so you may think this is a little bit dry initially, informal, but we have to follow a bunch of state laws and stuff. So this is a public hearing. For those who aren't familiar with the public hearings, this is an opportunity to hear from an applicant. In this case, this is the town of Woodstock, not the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's the town bringing this forward. Hear from staff, hear from members of the public, you. During the public hearing is our only time we can receive that information. Once the public hearing closes, it's still a public meeting, but we cannot hear from anybody. It's closed and we've received the information that we've received. If something is not brought to our attention during the public hearing and it comes to us after the public hearing, it's not for us to take up. So there are very strict rules. I also will remind people that it's always tempting to want to ask us as commissioners when you see us out and about, especially when we're out in the transfer station and we see everybody. But there are laws and rules we have to follow during public hearing that we really can't be having much discussion. That's separate for me as chair if I'm asked a process question or the time of the meeting, but we can't, outside of a public hearing, have any ex parte discussions, and we're very mindful of that. So we're not ignoring you if you happen to speak with us. It's just the rules we are required to follow. And courts do take that very seriously, and so do we. So we have to abide by that. You are welcome to speak. I'll explain those rules in a minute. You're not obligated to. I do ask that if anybody has anything they're submitting to us, it'd be helpful if we had copies for everybody, commissioners. If not, we're going to have to get some copies made, because we need to make certain we all have copies of it. And we want to make certain that the town as well is provided that opportunity as the applicant. Just so you know, this is a public hearing that we're meeting under a little bit different rules or reasons. Woodstock has a ordinance, and this commission has dealt with this ordinance many times. In fact, we had a series of meetings back in 2011. I remember those, where we created a nice working document with the help of the town, the help of the highway department, as far as how we deal with certain things that the commission has a role on, and that things that don't have to come to the commission. This is a town ordinance that we are following right now. And so it requires that any improvements to a scenic road, separate from whether we designate a road a scenic road, that's a different process, requires a public hearing and to be conducted by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission votes. So that is why we are meeting, and specifically, we are meeting, and I'll note this for the record, this is the ordinance concerning the designation of scenic roads, which became effective May 15th of '86, and we are meeting under the auspices of Section 4A, just so that way it's on the record, why we're doing what we're doing. So that is so noted. We have had public notices published in the Woodstock Villager on October 21st and October 28th. So we have met the statutory requirement of when these two notices have to be placed. So we are fine for that, which is good. I know the answer to this next question because I've seen it, because I've been on the road a number of times. But I'll ask the question anyway for the record. The public hearing signs have been posted. Is that correct? Yeah. I know the answer, but I just want to make certain it's on. We also are required to note, and I know the answer to this also, but we'll state it on the record. The ordinance does require that we have notified the selectmen, which, yes, especially since this is coming from the town, so it is so noted. But there were notices that had to be sent anyway from us, and those are listed as October 14th. So we've met that requirement. And we've also, per ordinance, needed to notify, it says the highway supervisor, but I believe the official title is highway department foreman. I believe that has been, you have been notified as well, Mr. Navarro.
Yeah.
So we've noted for the record that we have done that. And also as far as owners of lot frontage abutting the highway, this refers to the road, or portion of the highway designated as a scenic road of the proposed alteration. Have those notices been sent?
Yes.
Okay, so we note that for the record. So that is taken care of, so, which is good. I'm also going to note for the record some documents. I'm not going to read the entirety of the documents. I'm going to note them for the record, so that way they are entered in. I'm going to enter into the record the application by the town of Woodstock, which looks like August 17th, 2022. There's a date on it. I'm going to enter into the record in its entirety the ordinance. I'll read it again, so that way it's clear. Ordinance concerning the designation of scenic roads. That's entered into its entirety. Also, whenever we deal with scenic roads, we enter into its entirety. The scenic roads maintenance and improvements that was worked on by the Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Selectmen, and it's listed as Department of Public Works, the Highway Department. And that copy was finalized on May 19th, 2011. That's entered into the record, yes?
I have a different date. For the date of receipt, the first meeting that the commission discussed that I have is September 22nd.
Right, however, I'm listing it, I'm just stating the date that the application is, so it's fine. Yep, we have a letter from the Woodstock Central Cemetery Association dated April 29th. This was sent to the Board of Selectmen, and Mr. Navarro was copied on it, and I was copied as chair. I know previously the commission did see this letter as part of correspondence before any application was submitted. We're entering that into the record. We're entering my reply to the Woodstock Central Cemetery Association on May 7th, and the commission previously saw a copy of this letter as part of correspondence. We have a memo from Delia Fay that is listed September 21st. I believe this is the only memo we have, correct?
For me, yes.
Yes. So that's entered into the record. We have an email from the fire marshal on this topic, October 20th. That's entered into the record. We have a letter from Rosie Gallant dated October 27th. That's entered into the record. We have a letter from Lisa Davidson dated November 3rd. That is entered into the record. We have a letter from Charles Kaiser, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, dated October 28th. We are so entering that into the record. I did it. Yep, that's the fire marshal. We have correspondence from the Woodstock Conservation Commission of their Development Review Committee meeting. There is pictures and notes, October 27th of this year, and that is so entered into the record. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I know you gave us two things tonight. Were copies given? You have copies of those, Mr. Navarro, the things
I
from
have
tonight?
the letter from Rosie Gallant with the questions, and I have,
You have a copy of the Conservation Commission stuff?
yes, I do.
So here are two things we're given to you tonight. We want to make certain you have copies.
All these documents, Zoom document links. And the planning and zoning commission.
Yep, which is good. So we've noted all of that for the record. A few rules of how we have to conduct, or how we do conduct public hearings. The commission does set rules for it. If someone wishes to speak, we do ask that it's pertinent to this application. We would give you 5 minutes to speak. There's a lot of people here. We have to be mindful that we give everybody an opportunity. We give commissioners, we give staff, we give the applicant, which is the town of Woodstock, opportunities to speak. If you wish to speak for a second time, I'll recognize you. If you're going to let us know something new, if it's going to be something you already said, I'd have to rule you out of order because you have already spoken on that. People who speak for the second time, we do give 2 minutes to. I've been known over many years as chairman to be flexible with the rules because we do want to accommodate people speaking. But again, we have to be mindful of trying to get the work done and, not being here past midnight or whatever time the cows come home. We have to be mindful of that. So we try to get the meeting facilitated as best as we can. Commissioners have, in a sense, unlimited time. We're the ones that have to hold the public hearing and then decide where we are after the public hearing. And we do give time to the applicant, the town of Woodstock in this case. And we give them, opportunities to present what they want to present, answer questions. If anyone wishes to be recognized, there's a certain order we're going to go in. I'm going to recognize the applicant first, then I'm going to recognize staff, then I'm going to open it to commissioners. Then I'll open it up to the public, the way that we operate our public hearings. If, when I open up to the public, you wish to be recognized to speak, let me know, or if there's people who are on Zoom, try to raise your virtual hand or wave. Otherwise, we're trying to conduct the meeting in a hybrid manner. Can only recognize one person at a time. I do ask that please don't have side conversations. We want to make certain everybody can hear. These are public meetings. They are being recorded, audio and visual. If there's a question, direct the question up front, and then I can direct the question to whoever is the person to answer it. And that way we can try to facilitate the meeting as best as we can. So with that said, I'm going to open it up right now to our applicant. Mr. Navarro, it is always nice to see you. And I do want to say one thing, and I know I've said this before many times, but thank you for the work that you and your crew do.
I got a great crew. Thank
We
you.
have a big town geographically, lots of miles, as you
Yeah.
well know, and a lot to do, day and night. So thank you for the work you do and the
Thank you.
work
I'll
your crew
pass that
does.
along.
We do appreciate it
Part
very
of the
much.
crew's here, so.
Yes. And this is an opportunity, not just for him to say wonderful things about you on the record. And I know you've asked me already, but we could spend a few hours just for you to say that. But if there's anything you want to say about him to counter all the rumors we otherwise hear about, Mr. Bowman, this is your opportunity. So, but thank you for coming, but if
Okay,
you want to go ahead and present, we can show whatever you want to show on the screen.
okay. Well, as you stated, back in late April, the Board of Selectmen received a letter from the Woodstock Central Cemetery Association asking to remediate problems on Center Cemetery Road, specifically in the vicinity of the cemetery. The problems noted were the erosion, problems with parking, drainage. There's a few dead trees there. So the Board of Selectmen asked me to come up with a proposal to fix these problems, which I wrote up, I thought you had gotten copies of the proposal. I don't know if you did.
We do, this is the Center Cemetery Road proposal, so one, we
Okay,
did get that in the application, and there's some pictures.
Yeah.
That you submitted with it, and then,
correct.
yes, we do have that. Did you want us to show that up on the screen?
You
That
can if
document?
you want. I'm just gonna go through it quick.
Sure, yeah.
Um,
We will call it up on the screen, and that way, if you want us, you have the application, and it says Center Cemetery Road, that's the second page. You have it? It should be up, I know it's up there. Is it on?
Oops, I spelled it.
It's also on the town website. You can go to the second page. Probably third. Scrolling down. That's the page you're referring to, Mr. Navarro?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so
Do we need to share it?
Just a moment.
Okay.
the proposal that I came up with is, there's two phases to it. The first phase being to address the problems right in the immediate vicinity of the cemetery. Like I said, there's a few dying and dead trees there. The proposal calls to remove those. And then do some improvements to drainage, adding 2 catch basins on the east side of the road. And it would pipe into the same drainage system, which eventually dumps out across County Road. I'd like to extend the apron from County Road up the road by 80 feet. Residents seem to, or tend to gun it when they come around that corner, and it digs a hole and starts a washboard effect going up the hill. Hopefully a bigger apron will give them a better chance to get going. You won't have that problem. Second part, or the third part, would be to reshape the road to direct stormwater to the catch basins. There are catch basins currently on the west side of the road. I believe there's 4 of them. We'd like to fine grade the road and pave the drainage ditch with hot asphalt so it doesn't wash out, so it would not erode, and it would direct all the runoff into the catch basins. Also, the Cemetery Association had asked for additional parking. So part of the proposal would be to cut down the bank along the frontage of the cemetery and install a Cape Cod curb along with that paving that goes to the catch basins. We would then flatten out behind the Cape Cod curb and allow cars to pull up there off the side of the road to park in front of the cemetery. I think Delia and I figured it would add 10 to 12 cars worth of parking.
Yeah.
And then we'd like to fine grade the road bed, apply a double chip seal from County Road to the point just past the driveway of number 45, which is Fairlane Farms House. It's approximately 1,200 feet from County Road. Second phase of the proposal would be to extend the double chip seal an additional, I think I figured it out, was it's like an additional 1,600 feet just before the property at number 130. And again, like I said, it would be a double chip seal, which some people think chip sealing is paving. It really isn't. It leaves more of a gravel effect on top of the road. If anyone would like, I can explain how a chip seal is done and what's used to do it. But that's the basic proposal.
Just so that way we can all be reminded, this is being proposed because of trying to, is it to protect the road from erosion and other
It's
stuff that's
mainly
currently happening?
For
and
safety at the cemetery, and the second phase of the proposal is safety during the winter months. That section is prone to bad mud season. We've had issues with getting emergency vehicles through there. There is a lot of, over the years, the road has gotten built up with more houses, which requires more services. Trash trucks, oil delivery trucks. I've seen logging trucks up there for what, I don't know. What that really hurts the road and makes for poor travel. So we're just looking at a safety point of view. We want to be able to get to these houses up there with emergency services.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Was there anything with the pictures? Did we want to show those? You
I
included
think the
some
pictures,
on the, with your application. Is there anything you wanted to show us about those pictures?
okay, well, there's the beginning of the road. That, where the truck is probably where the extension of the apron would go to. It's not very clear, but you can see where, you can't really see it, where the vehicles gouge out the road and start the washboard effect. And then on the left side, you see the bank up by the wall to the cemetery. That would be flattened out, and we plant grass behind the curb so that they could pull off there to park. We did have a complaint. There is a driveway into the cemetery where the hearse got stuck because of the gully. So, and again, this isn't the first time this problem has been brought to the town. I think I have record of it being brought by Mr. St. Jean back in 2010. So we did look at it. I think I brought that to P and Z before and we got shot down.
And have some other pictures of these other pictures.
The other pictures, I think, just show other roads that have been, dirt roads that have been chip sealed, just to show what it looks like and to show that they're still in good shape after 6 or 7 years. Oh, that's the corner where it gets all torn up. There's some of the erosion on the, in front of the cemetery. There's the driveway to the cemetery. And again, that's going up Center Cemetery Road. You can see the erosion on the left side. This is Mellon Road, which was a dirt road that has been chip sealed. And that's been in place at least 7 years now.
Just one last picture in the application.
Another one. Yeah, again, that's Mellon Road. That's looking back down towards County Road. So that's what the double chip seal would look like on Center Cemetery Road for the most part.
Thank you. Is there anything else with your presentation?
No, like I said, I can explain the chip seal process to anyone that wants to know about it, what's used and how it works.
If you wanted to, this might be a good opportunity
Sure,
to
I can do
to
that.
explain
I
the
wrote a
chip
few
sealing
notes
and why
down.
you do it and what it is, and that way.
Okay. Okay, so chip seals use asphalt emulsions. Emulsions are very common. For instance, ice cream is an emulsion. Asphalt emulsions consist of 3 components: asphalt, water, and an emulsifier, which in our case is usually soap. So asphalt is bituminous concrete. It's a solid material. When they prepare it for a chip seal, they run it through a special mill that shears it and it forms droplets out of it. Then it's mixed with water and the emulsifier. Before it's put down, it's heated to around 130 degrees. And it's put down with a distributor truck, which is just a tank with a spray bar on it. Stuff is sprayed on the road and then the stones are put on top of it. What happens is the water and the emulsifier evaporate out of it and the asphalt turns to cement. Bituminous cement. So it's a very hard surface. There's no runoff from it or anything. And it holds the stones in place. And in this case, it would be 2 layers of emulsion and stone, 2 different types of stone, 1/2 inch and 3/8. So one of the big concerns on Center Cemetery Road is all the runoff running into the wetlands across County Road. The runoff from this would mainly be water. So you're gonna keep a lot of the silt and fines out of the wetlands. So that's basically the way it would be done.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'll open it up to staff. Delia, you reviewed this? I know we
Yes,
have your memo.
and I visited the site with John Navarro and I walked the entire length of the project.
I'll just know for the record, I've actually walked it, which technically counts as exercise, so my wife would be happy that I did that, as opposed to just drive it. You have your memo, I know you detailed a lot.
Yep, and I think I have some pictures.
So if you have pictures, is that stuff we've received, or is that additional stuff? Either way, we'll enter it into the record. If we haven't already received it, Delia.
This isn't gonna show very much. I apologize. It only shows what the cemetery is.
Okay, we'll still enter it into the record, so that way it's official. For your memo.
No, I was looking to see where the pictures are, but I think I need to take them.
Okay. Did you want to go through your memo?
Sure.
Do you have a copy of it first? Should show up on the screen as we go through it. And then we'll go through Delia's memo as staff. Just bear with us, we have lots of documents. We want to make certain that we show them up here for everybody to see as we're going through things. Should be there. There we go.
So I described in writing my conversation.
I just want to make certain folks who are on Zoom can see this as well. I just want to ask, are anybody on Zoom having any problems hearing or seeing the documents when they're shared? Is it working?
No, you've been coming in loud and clear, Mr.
Yep,
Chair.
good. Loud and clear, Mr. Chairman, and we can see the documents.
Excellent, excellent.
So I described in writing what I went over with John Navarro when I visited the site. So if you have any questions, we already explained to you the project, but I can go over my memo if you'd like.
Why don't you do that? I think that will be helpful. Have
So,
it up on the screen, but we can go through that.
so as John was explaining, when people are on Center Road and they want to turn right onto Center Cemetery Road to get onto that hill, they often have to speed up, and that action of their tires digs a hole or digs a depression into the road, which causes the slope to not be ideal. And then when it rains, it just exacerbates the problems. And during mud season, it becomes very hard to drive on, even for larger pickup trucks and SUVs. That would be a very serious concern for emergency vehicles to get through this road to get to someone's house. And the town has a responsibility to make sure that the road is passable in all seasons. So that's one of their reasons why they're submitting this application. And I've heard that the hearse got stuck in the driveway to the cemetery. That would be very unfortunate if that happened again. Especially during an emergency, if an emergency vehicle could not get through that area, if there was a vehicle stuck blocking the road. John, you didn't mention it tonight, but you mentioned during our conversation that over 500 tons of gravel have been added to the road over the last.
That was in
So
the
many
course
years.
of about 3 years, just in that one section by the cemetery.
So because of the nature of water flowing across the gravel road, it's going to wash the finer material down the road, and then you have to put it back. And during our visit, we could see there are fines across the Center Road in that wetland.
County road.
I'm sorry, on County Road. And I went to see Mellon Road and Shields Road to see where similar projects have been done. And the roads appear to be holding up very well. And then we go on to discuss the different sections of the proposal.
If you want it.
He's already described it, but if you'd like, we can go over it again.
I think he's already described it, unless you feel there's anything from your staff perspective you need to add.
No,
And is there anything then, I know you finished up your letter with regards to what you feel from a staff point of view regarding the proposal that's been submitted. Is there something then that you have any questions or issues about, or something that you feel from
well,
your staff perspective?
I grew up in southern New Hampshire on a dirt road, and so I'm familiar with living on a dirt road. You might have a 1,000-foot long dirt driveway right now. That's always been a maintenance problem, so I understand the charm of living on it and also the maintenance issues. But I share the town's concern that if you have trouble getting an emergency vehicle to your home, then that's going to be potentially very serious. So I think we should keep that in mind. And there are other locally designated scenic roads in town that are paved, so I don't think that that would severely harm the scenic character of your road.
And when you're talking about public safety, I know you mentioned this as well, Ms. Navarro, we did receive correspondence from the fire marshal,
Yes.
Richard Aaron, and he said that he's spoken with the fire chief, Jared Morse, regarding the proposed improvements. And they say that they're in favor of it from public safety point of view.
Fire marshal.
If you want to show that up on the screen and share it. He also mentioned that there's a dry hydrant that's already, I guess, installed or present. He had suggested that perhaps the area there could be widened slightly, so a truck could be set up to draft the water and allow still another vehicle to pass. That he could work with you, on that. I don't know if that was in your proposal, but that's.
Yeah, I
something that
got a
you feel
copy
could
of
be
this
done.
letter also. So yeah, that wouldn't be an issue at all. We could do that.
Okay, based upon what they feel would allow, basically to have a truck sitting there getting the water and another truck pass by
Right.
to get to wherever the fire is, back and forth, or whatever needs to be done. I noticed that was in there, but that's, we have that here, yep. So we do have his letter. We did get his input. So that, just want to note that for the record, so, because that is one of the aspects of why this is being proposed, it sounds like. Have anything else, Delia, from your perspective?
No,
Okay. And before I move on to anything else, I think this will be an opportunity for us to open up for commissioners right now, and then certainly we'll extend some time to our colleagues on the Conservation Commission. And we do appreciate the work that you guys do. I know you've given us a report, and we will get to that and give an opportunity to speak to the report. But I'll open up right now to commissioners based upon the presentation we had and the report from staff. And we can take things from there.
Just two quick ones. Do you know the distance from County Road to the entrance to the cemetery approximately?
I'm taking a guess, Joe, but I'd say it's about 500 feet.
Okay. Thank you. And just confirming chip sealed roads are not permeable.
Correct.
Okay. And I just wanted to comment that the original application from the Woodstock Central Cemetery Association, at least the way I understood it, was talking about doing improvements to Center Cemetery Road from County Road up to at least the entrance to the cemetery. That's at least what I took from the letter. The proposal here is a lot more extensive than just up to the entrance.
And if I just may do a follow-up question on that, and the reason why there's more in the proposal is based upon the assessment that's been done of that part of the road. You feel it needs to be done more than just what was initially requested to the Board of Selectmen to do what you feel needs to be done.
Correct.
Road.
Yeah, I mean, I did get the Conservation Commission's letter. And they state that we should try to direct the water to the roadside swales, which is a great idea, but it doesn't last. And the swales actually end when they get to the cemetery, so it directs the water back out into the road.
Dwight, did you have your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through the chair. I don't think what John is asking for is unreasonable. In over the years, I've seen that road washed out quite a bit. I'm sure John remembers back in 2005, we had some serious flooding, and most of that road in that section was down in County Road. It's a constant maintenance issue. Every time it rains, either the grader or the backhoe has to go up there to clean it back up again and make it drivable. I think that this is a good preventative maintenance treatment for the road that would prevent the erosion from occurring, and it would lower the maintenance for the highway staff, and as a being conservative, would save on tax dollars and buying processed gravel, constantly maintain the roads. I did read the Conservation Commission's letter. With all due respect, we tried, York raking that road, getting the roadside ditches down, trying to get the water off the road, and after one or two rainstorms, they're gone again. As far as geotextile fabrics, several years ago, I tried that in a parking lot area, and the plows weigh about 2,000 to 2,500 pounds, and we just peeled it up like a carpet. It would not work in that case. It's designed more for a low impact parking lot. So and I am in favor of chip seal, because as you get frost in the road and you get other treatments, mud season, the road has the tendency to buckle, and then it'll settle back out, and any kind of cracking, it'll actually reform and heal itself, whereas hot mix asphalt won't do that. So I think this is viable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dwight, thank you. If you don't mind, Keith, remind us, I think commissioners know, but if you can just remind us of your qualifications when you're speaking about the roads. I know you have many years of experience, so you just don't mind letting us know your qualifications.
In my past, I worked for the Woodstock Highway Department, and I worked closely with John Navarro. He's very in tune with all the modern technologies and with the Woodstock Road system. And currently, I serve as the Director of Public Works for the town of.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Mr.
David Morse, and then I'll recognize others. Dave, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Dwight, for that explanation. That was going to be one of my questions. And my other question is, what is California or Cape Cod style curbing?
It's a low profile curb.
Isn't it sloped? Let animals go
Yeah, it's more flat than a classic curb that's more of a hump. So you
I
can
just-
drive up over it.
up. And we still require that. If you look in our regulations, we still require Cape Cod curbing. And some of it is because of letting smaller critters be able to work their way up.
Okay.
I don't know if we still have a picture of it in our regulations. We used to, but we may still. So
Yeah.
we do require that in our regulations.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I understand that I live on a dirt road and I understand the qualms about having it paved, but I think for safety that this might be the right move here. Thanks for your explanation, John.
Thank you, David. Tim?
Just a question of, John, what's on the child dome?
Child Dome has a double chip seal on one side of it.
And that's pretty low.
Yeah.
That's pretty steep.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of agricultural vehicles going over it. It's held up quite well.
They test it rather well.
Yeah.
It's really served well.
Is there any other commissions? Did I miss any other
Lay down.
commissioner? Yeah.
Go on.
Yes.
That first 1,200 feet, is that up to the top of the hill?
Yeah, it's just by the farm at the curb.
And that's the steepest part of the road, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. That's where all the drainage issues start.
So if you had to break it down into phases, you'd say
That would be
phase one is the most critical.
correct.
Let me just ask you a question for, to do this work, how much time do you think it takes? Let's say this gets approved as presented. How
Oh,
much
it
time does it
certainly
take
wouldn't
to
be
get that
done
done?
until late next spring, but the highway department would probably work on it for 2 to 3 weeks, and then the chip seal contractor would come in and we'd work with them. So I would say within a month it would be.
Okay. Not a lengthy one, you thought, but
No,
anything else from commissioners? We have touched upon, I'm sorry. Sid, yes. Please go ahead.
John, maybe help save me from reading the handwritten document. Can you just explain what this says and what's attached?
which document do you have?
Part of your application.
Is this from 1927? Was this part of the application?
Yeah.
It's the Woodstock Central Cemetery. It is in the application.
Center.
Received April 26, 1927.
So that's their request.
Oh, okay. That's something the Cemetery Association submitted.
Yeah, that's the letter they submitted to the Board of Selectmen.
So this is something in the past that looks like,
Oh, I don't know if I have that one.
yeah, this one was given to us. It looks like it's, Articles of Association. Sid.
Okay, all right.
Way at the top, it says Articles of Association. Looks like, yeah, received April 26, 1927 at 2 p.m.
All right, so this is the deed for the cemetery. So,
Oh, okay.
That's
But it
what
was
it looks like.
attached to your application, John, at least in
Oh,
the back.
When we get it.
Okay.
It may have been just attached
Yeah.
for documents to us, perhaps, but not part of the application. Yeah, because there's another document received October 6, 1928 at 4:15 p.m. Looks like these are all just deeds and stuff.
Yeah, I don't have the actual application. All I have is the proposal.
So that might be, it just might be documents we received.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, unless it was submitted with the, to the, I don't know if this was part of what was submitted initially to the select, and it was in our meeting packet, but nice handwriting in the 1920s, all handwritten.
Then just following up to what Joe was saying, the first phase is the about 1,200 feet from County Road to what's formerly known as the Deer Farm.
Correct.
And then you agree that it's about 2,000 feet from there to about house number
130, it's
section 2.
hard to explain, but it's more on the, once you go past the deer farm and you go past the fire pond, you're up on a flat spot. That's the area that's prone to horrendous mud season, right on that flat spot. And the proposal would go up to the next corner around, and there's a house on the left of 130. The old Landon residence, so not, I think actually Rosie Gallant lives there.
So now I roughly estimate it's about another 1,500 feet till the end of Center Cemetery Road. So it looks like you're paving about 2/3 of it, maybe the
Correct.
final third. That's
Correct. It's almost a mile long. We're looking at doing, I think I had 2,800, somewhere around there, 2,800 feet.
Any plans on paving the rest of the road?
I did not put that in the proposal. That section of the road seems to stay pretty good.
As far as ash trees, I think we all kind of know they're on their way out.
Yeah,
You've identified 2 to be taken down.
there's 2 right there against the wall by the cemetery.
So are they within the right of way between the stone walls?
They're in the town's right of way, yes,
So therefore they're the town's trees, the town's
Right.
responsible for taking them down.
right.
The town will pay for that. Are there more as you go up in the area that you're going to work in?
Well, there's more on the road. I mean, we've been taking ash trees down all over the place. We've taken, I would say, 12 to 15 trees down on Center Cemetery Road. And more in the area up to the second phase of the project, up to 130. There's been a lot of dead trees in there, not only ash, but red oak.
Oh, yeah, from gypsum oil probably.
Yep.
I was kind of interested also in your comparison with Mellon Road. That's a pretty flat road. It's got very little pitch to it.
It's fairly flat. There is a grade going up to just before it ends by the old Mellon house, where it goes into Seth Spalding's property.
So that's a dead end.
It is a dead end.
Doesn't get much traffic.
No, not really. Well, it gets some truck traffic from Mr. Spalding.
Yeah.
Heavy truck traffic. So it's actually held up pretty good. We did put, I think, 2 or 3 basins in there when we did that, when we chip sealed that road.
And how many houses are on that Mellon Road? 2,
There
maybe
are-
3.
There's 3 on the town section.
All right, well, I think most people would agree that the Center Cemetery Road needs some work. And all roads need maintenance. I think regardless of what you cover them with, they're going to need to be maintained. This one, I think, certainly needs to be improved as well. Apparently, the Conservation Commission is going to speak about their recommendations, which I'm interested in. I think it'd be worthwhile considering them, but they're the experts. Will leave that up to them for now.
Thank you, Sid. One thing I do want to mention, as far as getting rid of dead or hazardous trees and branches, that's considered maintenance under the working document. And that does not require commission approval. That's considered cutting and pruning. We noted that, and then we noted that one can see the tree and brush cutting policy that the town has, which I'm sure you're more aware of than we are. So we don't have to get into those details unless you want to give us a demonstration. So, But if there's dead or hazardous trees and branches on the town right away, the town can certainly deal with that.
Mhm.
So I know you've mentioned it in this application, but if that's in the town right away, that falls under maintenance time.
Yep.
So just let you know it for the record. So if it were to be that you find some more trees in the town right away, that you feel are hazardous, then, you deal with those as you feel you need to deal with.
Mhm.
So, the way that this is set up.
I just,
Sure,
one more
Sid.
thing, I've just already been,
Yep, sure, please. Go ahead.
you don't have any plans on widening the road?
No.
Which I didn't see in your application either. Or the fire department brought that up.
Oh, they just want to widen it in that one section where the dry hydrant is, so a truck can pull off. We did widen it when they put that in a little bit, but apparently there's not enough room with the truck sitting there for another truck to go by it. So that's what Mr. Barrett was talking about.
Widening part of the application now?
If they're wishing to add it, that's a pull-off type thing you're
Yeah.
looking for, as opposed to widening the whole road stretch.
Correct.
It'd be more like, you're creating like a little pull-off
Yeah,
that is stabilized
it's
for them to have the
probably-
truck sitting there.
what, maybe 40, 50 feet long.
So, but that's part of what then you would want to have in this application.
Mr. Barron's the one that asked for that. I mean, we can put it in there.
So your point is, Sid, that, if that's to be considered, you would need to note it.
Again, that's public
Right.
safety, so
Our regs don't define how
Well,
wide is wide, how long.
no.
A widening is considered a change that needs to be stated on an application.
No, it talks about why it doesn't discuss that. We do discuss about that there are certain public safety provisions that if the town feels it needs to do, those are more talking about certain emergency situations that something needs to be done.
Gillian might remember when that dry hydrant was put in, if it was proposed to be widened then. Do you remember that at all?
I don't remember about widening the road, but I do remember the whole process and having the site design.
Right.
For some reason, it wasn't done when that subdivision was approved, and the subdivision was done like a couple lots at a time, very confusing. But later on, that applicant had to come back and get approved to put the dry hydrant in.
Right.
So I remember that it probably was 2010.
Yeah, I would say right around there, 2010, 2012.
But if we want, but I guess the issue would be, we have the fire marshal's report. We spoke with the applicable fire chief that covers that part of town, that they are advising that. So we noted it, that it's in the record. I guess the issue is that something that the town would be looking to do, in which case it'd be what you're proposing to work.
I
with
would
the fire
say yes,
marshal?
we certainly want to work with the fire department, so yes, I would say. I mean, I can,
Include it then as part of our discussion and deliberation.
And we can do that.
We can, yes.
I can certainly get measurements for the widening, how long and how wide, how much wider.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about more from a process point of view. If this is going to be proposed in addition to what is here, we would want to make certain that it's on the record that additional, that's what would be proposed. So that way, if we're going to say we approve this, we would also, for example, approve what the fire marshal is proposing. Because otherwise, technically, if we approve this application, but not what the fire marshals are proposing, then it gets into, is it an improvement, is it not an improvement, that type of stuff. I guess it's cleaner just to,
I would add,
you're not opposed to what the fire marshal is proposing, it makes sense.
it's not at all, again, public safety, so.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're legal or on solid ground, that we're not changing an application of a meeting that was noticed that's now different from what the public's been informed of. Again, like any legal notice or public notification.
And applicants can add things, take things away, we can suggest things or add things, as far as during public hearings. We raise these things, and then when we deliberate, like in other applications, we sometimes add conditions, so it can be so done, it would be fine. You know, I guess the issue is that more of a public safety matter that doesn't per se have to come to us, although it sounds like it'd probably be cleaner to just say this is something you're not averse to working with them on, and just to have it then on the record, since it's been raised by the fire marshal. That way it's just a clean way of us
Yeah, I think,
reviewing this application. And
I think if it's possible to add it in, yes, we would like to do that.
how long of a pull-off area to stabilize are you feeling it needs to be? Is it, I know we sometimes require this for long driveways and subdivisions, and we have certain, provisions there that we've gotten input from the fire departments over the years about what works, what doesn't.
There is a
work for
pull off there now, Jeff, where the dry hydrant is. Apparently it's not wide enough, so. In length, I would say it would be 50 to 60 feet long and maybe another 10 feet wide towards the dry hydrant.
And it's only that one area that you propose.
Correct.
That's where the dry hydrant is.
Correct.
So, okay. Well, we'll note that, so that way then we'll just add it in, as far as our discussions and what is being proposed, so just to make it easier.
Okay.
For that, so. Anything else from our commissioners? Yes, Dean.
So I would just like to say that working for the town, I get to see a lot of this stuff. And I'd say every second to third moderate rain event, the grader's going up that road to fix it. Or at least the backhoe has to go scrape it all out of county road. And in the wintertime, a lot of the times in that area, the second part of the job I'm proposing, it gets so muddy that we have to put down 3-inch minus rock, but we can't do it with our normal dump trucks. We can go out with a 1-ton because our normal ones will sink. So it does get very, very, very wet.
Thank you, Dean. Did I miss any other commissioners who are on Zoom? Just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, I just have one other question, and I'm going to reserve some questions after the Conservation Commission gives their report. When you transition from the chip seal to the non-chip seal part, there's no issue with the plows coming by and digging things up. I'm assuming there's been no issues. Otherwise,
We hope not, but I'm sure that the same person plows the road all the time, so they're aware of where the end will be, and I'm sure they'll mark it with stakes, so.
that way they'll just know. Assuming you guys know
Yeah.
what to do. And if we were to put a condition in, maybe Dean knows this, that we get to drive some of the trucks around in the snow to let us do that.
Anytime you want.
If there's nothing else from commissioners, I'll open up to the Conservation Commission. We do have the report, and thank you for sending it. But who would wish to speak on behalf of the Conservation Commission? We usually are trying to limit things to 5 minutes, but I'm happy to give you some more time. As a fellow commission, you did give us a report which we had into the record. So please identify yourself. It's good to see you again.
Hi, I am Jean Pillow, and I'm on the Woodstock Conservation Commission. And we did meet to review this after we drove the road and made our own observations. Delia, would you kindly bring up the pictures that I gave you on Flashback?
And if I can just say for the record, you're speaking on behalf of the
I'm
Conservation.
speaking on behalf of the Conservation Commission. Just for the, also for the record though, I am a certified professional in erosion control, that I qualified.
Got my toes in the water, ass in the sand, not a worry in a world of cold. I got my toes in the water, ass in the
I get
sand.
more than 5 minutes, Jeff.
You can, unless you want to listen to the song, but I think I muted the person who that was coming from. They won't be able to unmute themselves. I think we taken care of it, but that's a nice, musical intro to your presentation.
Do I have to dance too?
Well, we can put the music back on if you'd like. We have a room of townspeople. Maybe that might be a way to get more people coming to our meetings.
Well, yeah, pretty proud tonight. I just want to say for the record that I am a certified professional sediment and erosion control. I'm not an engineer. I know there are people in the room who are. And I'm trained to do stormwater assessments at construction sites under the Connecticut General Stormwater Permit. When I look at this road, I see a beautiful road. I see a lot of our town history, but I also see things that could be maintained differently. But I also, for the record, I think ambulances and fire trucks need to get up there, garbage trucks, oil trucks. And I also understand the limitations of the budget of the highway department under Prop 46. They can't have unlimited funds to do things. But when I look at this road, what calls out in my mind is the roads, the grass is lower on the sides. The road is kind of humped in the middle, but then you get those ridges, and then there's those erosion trenches, and then the grass. And the erosion is not starting here. It starts up the street. If you can please, Delia, advance that to. There's a slide that shows the driveway. No, it's smaller.
Figure 4 in your handout.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. The next one, please. Keep going, figure 4. It is. So this is after you go around the corner, and you can see on the right-hand side that the water starts to dig in at this point. And that we're, what, you said 1,000? He said 1,000 feet. I'm trying to remember the exact numbers.
You're probably at about 14.
1,400 feet. So this is a little bit of erosion, and all the water that's hitting this road, and I'm not going to say it's a pervious road just because it's unpaved. It's so compacted, it's probably as impervious as a paved road. But also water continues to add to this. You're going to be increasing the erosive capacity. Let's see. When the velocity of the runoff of an unpaved road surface doubles, the volume of sediment that can be moved increases 4-fold. The particles that can be transported increases 8-fold when the velocity is doubled. And then the sand and gravel deposits on the side of the road are acting as berms to keep that water from going off the road into the swales where they can be soaked into the ground, remove some of that sediment, and reduce that erosion from happening. So the corrective actions need to be as far up as up here, where we break up that force of water. And you do that by putting in those, not water bars, kind of water bars. The rolling dips in the roads, and these can be very gradual. They're not going to be like a giant one. I've been in some, like if anybody's been to Gale Force, they deliberately make them severe, so you're going to drive fast on the roads. But you be very gentle, so the plow can go over it. And as you break up this flow of water, put it off to the side of the road. It's not going to pick up the sand and gravel. And then as you need to put in another one, you interrupt that flow again. And that's something that I have not seen tried in our town road maintenance plan. And I think it's something that can be tried to break up the flow. And it can't be done everywhere. But that's something that can happen in certain circumstances. And in this road with all the fields on the sides and the swales, this would be a way to get the water where it's supposed to go. Those soil pile, and water doesn't flow uphill. They're not going to go over those berms and get into the swale. We're not giving it the opportunity. So when they're grading the road, make sure they do another pass or whatever to get that road edge slope down to the swale so the water can get there. And this is not just on Cemetery Road. I see this frequently. I live on a scenic road. I think it was just graded recently. And there they are on the sides of the roads. So this is something we need to be mindful of because it's exacerbating the problem. And then as far as the areas where the mud season is a problem, there are geotextile products that are not fabric, but they're actual hard plastic grids. And the way they work is you put them under the road surface, a good 6, 8 inches down. And it comes in a giant roll, and the triangular shaped grid patterns trap the gravel and keep it from moving to the side. And when you roll over that, it's like going on a snowshoe. And there are different grades of these products. They have some that are better than others. And I would love to see our town try this at least in one area before we start chip sealing the roads. We do not really want to have more impervious surfaces. I don't really think the town should be thinking about expanding our stormwater conveyance systems in a formal pipe format, because after a time, we're going to be required to follow the MS4 regulations, municipal separate stormwater sewer system, which has all kinds of regulatory requirements that towns have to abide by. We're exempt right now because we don't have stormwater sewers, but that's something that we can come up against in the future. So we want to avoid that.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question, a couple of questions for Mr. Navarro about this. When we're talking about rolling dips, how does that get handled relative to plows dealing with these dips? Are they engineered in such a way that the plows don't destroy them over time?
Well, as Gene said, you could make them gradual. We can certainly try that there. I don't know as if the crown of the road is high enough to get the water off the road with a dip. We did try to get rid of the double berm on the sides of the roads. That's when we added the 500 yards of gravel to try to bring the road bed up. It didn't, it lasted maybe 6 months, and it was right back to where it was. So I'm sure we could try that there.
And the it's geo.
I've looked into geotextiles before. Talked to a couple of towns that tried them years ago. One town loved it, the other town ripped them all out. They're not inexpensive. They're quite expensive. And they do, over time, the grids clog up and fail.
So it's not something, that's why it's not in your proposal to use them?
It's too cost prohibitive.
Okay. Is there any other commissioners that had any questions from the Conservation Commission report?
Mr. Chairman, this is Dwight. I'd just like to comment on that again. In regard to the putting in some type of diversionary onto the road. What tends to happen is after rainstorms, those increase in depth and become more challenging for traffic and also for plowing conditions. They're more prone to washing out. As was mentioned by Ms. Pillow, that road surface is probably impervious now because it's so compacted. So there wouldn't be any impact on that section of road. And then in regard to MS4 stormwater, even though Woodstock is currently exempt from that, they are following most of that protocol now by pumping out catch basins every year and checking waterways and retention ponds. So in a way, we are compliant with that. And once again, the geotextile in an area like this, I don't feel that it would be cost effective and help that section of road any. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dwight. Joe?
Just a quick question on that section of Center Cemetery Road from County Road all the way up to Fairlane Farm. Pretty straight.
It is.
There's a dirt road being a little rougher. I'm assuming it tends to keep traffic a little slower.
Somewhat. I see cars flying. Yeah.
They still go pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I would expect if it's chip sealed and solid,
I don't know if they go any faster than they are now.
you know, any traffic calming kind of devices or designs that could be considered if it's chip sealed.
We don't do speed bumps. The only way we calm traffic is by narrowing sections of the road to slow people down. Maybe the rolling dips might slow them down, I don't know. But it wouldn't be a rolling dip in the chip seal.
Thank you, Joe. And then one thing I just want to make clear on the record is when it comes to maintaining these roads, any long-term maintenance plans, best management practices, the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't come up with those. That's you guys and your expertise do. Our role is very much defined by ordinance. We can designate a scenic road. We can actually undesignate it. I don't think the commission's ever done that, actually. But we have designated several in my time on the commission. And then when it comes to like improvements, but as far as how these roads get maintained, long-term management practices, that's not something this commission weighs in on. Other than, just as citizens, if you had questions or concerns, that's what you manage,
Right.
Not anything that we manage. Joe?
Yeah, the mud and the bogging down section, is that in phase 2?
It is.
That's the area up in phase 2?
Yeah, that's the worst section on that road.
Yeah. And those areas that are really bad, are they extensive or is it a pocket here, a pocket there?
It's probably a stretch of road that's maybe 500 feet long.
That long?
Yes. And we did have another road in town, and most of the roads that we have the mud problems on tend to run, or where the mud problems are, tend to run north to south. So they get sun at the highest point of the day, and that helps with the melting.
Yeah.
The other road that we had this issue on was Calkins Road, which eventually we wound up doing a double chip seal and have never had any issues before. There was a point or a winter where we actually had to take the road grader and grade the mud to the sides of the road. And we're talking 2 feet of mud. So it made a mess.
Yeah, in order for these tensor grids to work, you'd have to excavate out all the unsuitable silty material first,
Right.
which I don't know, could be a foot, could be 2 foot of material. And then you have to backfill with processed over top of the grid. So the expense isn't just the grid, it's the removal of the unsuitable silty material,
Yeah, and the
And
replacement
then-
of it.
putting back process.
Correct.
You feel if we can just grade it off and put the double chip seal, that will work?
Yes, it has worked.
Okay,
We've already done it.
yeah, which is, of course, extremely much cheaper.
Yes. Indeed.
So, yeah, I understand what you're saying, the Conservation Commission is saying about these tensor grids, and they are good,
Right.
but you have to take the unsuitable material out first.
I have looked at them in the past and they were extremely expensive. I don't know if they've come down a lot in cost, but
Well, I think the gravel, the excavating and removing the material and then backfilling with process is a lot more expensive than the grid itself.
yeah, I'm sure it would be.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Sid?
John, Gene mentioned that the erosion actually starts up by the former deer farm,
Correct.
which kind of makes sense, top of the hill, flows, down. So with an asphalted road, that water is gonna need to start to go somewhere.
Yep.
Are you planning on curbing the entire length from the deer farm down, only in front of the cemetery?
Correct.
To keep water from going that way?
And like Gene said, from the Gear Farm down towards the cemetery, there are roadside grass swales. but unfortunately, they end right at the cemetery. The grade of the lawn, if you want to call it, goes up by the cemetery. So the water is forced back out into the road. Luckily, that's where the drainage starts, just past the cemetery driveway.
The storm drains.
Yes, so that water would be directed into those storm drains. There's 3 or 4 of them. I want to put 2 on the other side.
Now, are there any state or federal laws about taking that stormwater from Center Cemetery Road, crossing, I'm guessing County Road, and dumping it into a wetland that you have to be applying for or cautious of, or I don't know, I'm just asking.
I'm not aware of any, Sid, but I can say it's been going there for the 30 years that I've been here.
Just one last question. Follow up to Joe's comment about speed, safety, so forth and so on. Again, just your opinion. Roads that are striped, center stripe down the middle of the road, yellow, no passing. Do you think they make drivers slow down because they've got a narrower road, or do you think it makes them drive faster because they feel, all right, this is my half, I can, and it's all mine, and I don't have to.
I think they may drive a little bit faster because they've got a guide to go by. We did try, when Dwight was here, we tried striping a few roads. The problem with that is we do a lot of chip sealing. Our chip seal program is very extensive, so every few years, the stripes go away and it gets the cost adds up.
Okay, all right. But you don't think it slows people down? In fact, it might speed them up.
Yeah, I think so.
Judging by the average speeds on a lot of roads, even the ones that are twisty and curvy, seems to be the average speed is faster than 395.
No,
In a lot of the towns, if it's not ours, a lot of towns.
yeah, I agree.
Which is a separate issue beyond our first. For what's happening now. Anything else from commissioners? I just want to make certain I'm not missing anybody, any commissioner online, or not, anything else? I'll open up to members of the public if anyone has any questions, whatever. Again, I'm going to have to abide by the 5-minute, but I'll recognize you one at a time. You can just state your name for the record. I just ask that people speak loud, so that way we can all hear and the folks on the Zoom can hear through the owl device. But thank you for coming tonight.
My name is Carl Abissi. I live on 161 Center Cemetery Road. I've lived on this road since 1993, so I have a lot of experience with the different conditions on that road. When I saw this, I was really surprised that the rest of the road wasn't addressed. There are times when the public safety hazard from 130 up to Center Road. It can be a hazard. I know that because I've gone out on emergency calls. So there's a problem there. Now, with that being said, there's another big issue, and that issue is drainage on my property from the road. Did you know about that? At the bottom of 2 hills, there's 2 catch basins. They empty out my property, and there's so much silt back there right now, it's ridiculous. I have to maintain that one catch basin. I don't go the other side of the road, sorry. I don't go the other side. I do it on the side. I have to maintain that catch basin so I can have water drain down on the other side of my driveway. I have to dig a ditch or those water will go down, or erodes my driveway, and I put it in one ground. Once that water goes down into those 2 catch basins, it comes out in a pipe right at the edge of my lawn, flows back, and it looks like it's a stream. I mean, thousands of gallons going through there. Probably some of that 500 yards of gravel's in the back of my property right now, but it's a mess. And that used to be this. So I'm not sure why that wasn't looked at in those situations with the hazards we have on that end of the road and that drainage problem not being addressed.
Thank you. I'll open it up. Mr. Navarro, did you have any reply to that, or?
Well, historically, the problem sections are the 2 sections that we address. Your end of the road usually stays in fairly good shape. I know there's a little bit of mud problems there. I'm aware of that.
I'm not saying.
No, just one person, if we can, just one person at a time. We just want to make certain.
I am aware of the drainage issues. I think we've talked about it before. Yeah, certainly get together and see if we can.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming tonight.
I live on,
Can
I
you
own
just
a
state
house
your
on-
name for the record?
I own a house on Mellon Road, and David has done a wonderful job on that road, and I remember when it was non-passable. And as for the gear farm, that's like a big river that comes down through between the house and the barn. Because I've worked up there, I know what's going on. It's a very high hill up there, and all your water comes off that watershed. So if you don't do like you were saying right now, and I appreciate what you're saying, because if you don't stop the water from coming from the gear farm down, you'll never stop the water from digging out that road. That's a regular waterway right between the house and the barn. If you go up that hill, that's almost the highest place in Woodstock. And that water sheds out of there like you wouldn't believe. And I have the same thing on 197 with my house. So I know what it's all about when it comes to water, as you people know.
Thank you. And just, if you don't mind, just stating your name for the record, so we can get
Ernest
it.
St. Jean.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, and I own a house on Mellon Road, and I'm very pleased with it.
Anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, please state your name for the record. Thank you for being here tonight.
Harold Foskey. Addressing following what Ernie's saying, coming down on the west side of Senate Cemetery Road, there's some catch basins up above the cemetery that last time I looked, they're about 4 or 6 inches above the grade. Water doesn't go off the hill. Is that going to be addressed going down through there, the drainage, like through the front of the cemetery? Is that part of the?
Yes.
Okay. And another question on that. I'm not familiar with that at all, but I know that the cemetery wall is up quite a bit higher than the road.
What's the question, the curbing?
Yeah. How high does that go up?
Maybe,
So
it's a very
that
gradual,
isn't out much, I mean, as far as.
well, it'll keep the water going to the catch basins,
Okay.
and it also allow the people visiting the cemetery to drive up over the curb.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll get to that. Keeping track of it. Is there anybody, did I miss anybody's hand here? And then I'll recognize who's on Zoom. Yes, and then I'll go to the person on Zoom. I thought I'd seen somebody's hand. So thank you for being here tonight. If you can just state your name for the record.
Sure. Are we referring to me?
Yes.
Rosie Gallant. I own the property of 130 Center Cemetery Road, which is referenced in project 2 of the proposal. I did send in a letter with some concerns and questions that I had. A lot of those questions I think have been answered, but I do want to kind of just reiterate some of them, but perhaps I can get some more information. I sent in, a concern regarding the emulsifier used in chip sealing, which I believe you explained briefly before, and I was wondering if you could repeat. After referencing some reports I found about groundwater, toxic leaching into groundwater, depending on what the binding and emulsifying material is used. And did you say that it's soap?
It is. The emulsifier is just used to keep the asphalt suspended in the emulsion. So in the case with the chip seal or the asphalt emulsion, they normally use just soap. So when the water evaporates out of it, the soap goes with it.
So has the town done any sort of like water testing on any of the chip seal projects that have been done in the town? See if there
Chips
is
to the
any
bar.
sort of-
Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you. I also, I'm curious about the change in grade from the chip sealed part of the road to the dirt road. What would we expect as folks who drive that road regularly?
I don't think you'd even notice it.
Okay. And for those of us that have ponds, they do own the adjacent property where the chip sealing is being proposed. We do have a pond there, so if it's an impervious surface, would we, is there any drainage that's going to be part of the project 2 of the proposal?
Well, your corner needs some drainage work anyway. I know there's a culvert that comes from the north side from the agricultural fields and dumps across the road into the pond. There's also an issue with one of the driveways across the road from.
Yes, so that part of our property is becoming very much wetland from all of the water that is running off, and I'm wondering if the chip sealing part of the road is gonna even exacerbate that further.
I really don't think so. I don't think it's going to add any more water to it. Unfortunately, the cross culvert there on the corner has been there for a long time. There's really no plan or proposal to remove it and trying to redirect the water somewhere else at this point.
And then just one more thing. My other concern, which I think was brought up by someone else, is just the road. I mean, we have a lot of young kids and whatnot on that road. I do feel like, with chip sealing is our folks going to speed even more on that road. The road has already become a cut through for other, from county to center road, and it already is an issue with speeding. And I feel like that would just be an area where folks would fly if they could.
I don't think they'd go any faster than they're going now.
Which is best.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have somebody who is on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. If you would want to, are you unmuted?
Yes, I am.
Just state your name for the record, please.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Elizabeth Crampton, and I'm a resident at 103 Center Cemetery Road. That puts me in the phase 2 that you're talking about. Sorry, I can't be with you there tonight under the weather. I'm also the newest resident to the road, but I have lived through an entire mud season. I've been there almost a year now. I also wear another hat as a residential real estate agent. I know that's outside of the Boston area, but I've been selling homes for 24 years. So I just have that perspective about properties as well. And I just have to say that one of the biggest draws for me about Center Cemetery Road was the dirt road. That was so beautiful to me. It was like a step back in time. I love seeing families with children strolling down the middle of the road. I find that cars do go super slow there. I don't drive over 15. I don't know what the speed limit is, but I feel safe. Dogs, children, families. So not only is it going to change the look, I did drive down Mellon. And I think I understand the safety issues, but I really liked what the conservation department was saying tonight. And if we could just make it look more rustic, more pebbled, I really want to see that traffic stay slow. And I just think it's one of the charms about Woodstock. It was one of the draws for me to come to town, which I love so much.
Thank you. Yes. Can you
Yes,
please
hi.
state your name for the record. Thank you for
My
being
name
here.
is Bill Dykeman. I'm one of the owners at 86 Center Cemetery Road. I like to say that we have in the back, we have a beautiful half-acre pond. It's a very healthy pond, the fish in there, great population of largemouth bass. And my grandchildren swim in that pond. I have it tested every year. I'm sure that the chip seal won't in any way contaminate the water, but I'm concerned that the water is directed into that pond. The silt eventually affect the healthy environment that now exists in that pond.
Thank you. I don't know if that's something you can answer, Mr. Navarro, or.
I think the water is directed to your pond now through a culvert pipe.
Yeah, from the pond across the street.
Correct.
Right.
So the water is directed to that pipe now. With the chip seal, you'll have less silting. Most of the silting is coming off the gravel road.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, thank you for being here.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Charles Kaiser. I live at 45 Central Cemetery Road, which is Fairway Farm. Here. So County, Center Cemetery Road bisects our property.
Mhm.
We have about a half mile of frontage on both sides, except for the cemetery. So I'm quite familiar with the trail there.
Mhm.
We maintain, the town's right of way or town's property between. So we keep it up, we're familiar with what's happening there. We would love to see the gravel stabilized. One way or another. It's ending up in our agricultural fields, we cut hay. To the east of the cemetery, and last year, a lot of that gravel ended up in the hay field. And that, those, the blades for cutting hay.
Mhm.
So that's one issue I'd like to see the erosion stop. The runoff also ends up on our property on the other side of county, the wetland. So, if we can keep the gravel out of that area, that'd be great too. But we need some better engineering of drainage across county. Mr. St. Jean was correct. The water comes down off the hill like a river on the driveway, and that really eats up our gravel road. So I would like to know exactly how are you going to channel drainage from the farmhouse down to County Road? Are you going to try to reestablish ditches on either side of the road?
Well, as Gene Pillow said, once you come out of your driveway and you head down towards County Road, there are grass swales on the side until you get to the cemetery. So a lot of that water would go into the grass swales and hopefully be absorbed by the ground.
So would you be building up the road bed?
Yes.
Swale?
Yeah, we would get rid of that double ditching as Gene talked about. But once it gets to the cemetery, it directs it back into the road. That's where the drainage starts. So it would be directed into the drainage catch basins. That's where we're putting the Cape Cod curb. And it would only be on the side of the cemetery. So on the eastern side, proposing a catch basin up by the first catch basin on the cemetery side. And that would be crossed over into that same drainage system.
And that would be an open ditch or would be covered?
It would be covered. And we still have a water cut that curves down around onto County Road to another catch basin on County Road. So we would maintain that water cut around the corner.
Okay. All right. That's fine. And remember the cemetery stone walls are retaining stone. You have to be careful how close you excavate.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's one issue. The other is from the farmhouse going north. It's very flat.
Right.
And the town has two little ditches on either side.
There's a culvert there.
Yeah, and then it's been ditched onto our property as well. From, I don't know who made that, but
that's been there as long as I've been.
I'll just give you the 1 minute warning.
yeah, well, I got a lot of front of it. I'm pretty sure we talked about here. So anyways, I would, and that still gets very wet because of the drainage on the road. So I'd like to see what your proposal is for drainage along that flat strip from our house to the pond, even beyond the dike property, because it's very flat through there. How that water is to be directed, either to a natural water course or some sort of retention pond or ditch.
It would most likely be an open ditch on the, what would that be, east, northeast side of the road? Across from Mr. Beckman's.
Okay, so I would like to see that plan sometime in the future, so I can,
yeah,
it's our property, it affects our property.
We can get together, and I know the cross culvert you're talking about goes across the road.
Yeah.
I think it goes all the way through your
No,
property.
well, no, it doesn't.
It used to.
It used to, but it may have, I mean, it's a hayfield now. And
Well, I'll give you the 5, this is the 5 minute mark, so thank you.
Yeah.
We can get together.
Okay, well, let's talk, and
I'll move on to the next. Yes, thank you for coming tonight. If you can state your name for the record.
I'm Kristen Kaiser. I live at 45 Center Cemetery Road also. My concern, in addition to the speeding and the loss of the character look, which may seem trivial, but if it looks paved, it looks straight, it looks beautiful, are we going to be inundated with motorcycles? Because I spend time on the hill on 169 on the weekends. And when the motorcycles come through, you cannot talk, you cannot hear, you cannot think. And if I had a motorcycle, I'd want to be on that road, but I really, is there anything we can do to make it unappealing? Like a speed bump?
We don't do speed bumps.
Why not?
That's a liability. We can talk.
Is there any signage that would deter a motorcyclist?
We can't stop them from using it.
I'll just ask that we keep the comments germane to this application. When it comes to, I think signage and stuff, that's beyond this commission's purview. That's the town
But it's
itself.
changing the character of
But
the road.
we would just need to, I could just say, focus on this application itself. That's where we have to stay within our jurisdiction for this public hearing. Did you have anything else? Okay, thank you for coming here tonight. Yes, thank you for being here. You can state your name for the record.
Christina Gregorczyk. So, good evening. My name is Christina Gregorczyk, maiden name Marcy. Of Center Cemetery Road in Woodstock. I also grew up in Woodstock. And I'm the descendant of one of the founders of Woodstock, John Marcy. I'm very disappointed by this proposal. I feel as though Woodstock should go to great lengths to preserve the natural beauty of scenic roads. And adding any unnecessary chemicals that will drain into the wetlands, ponds, and eventually our drinking water. Center Cemetery has been considered a scenic road since 1988, and it would be heartbreaking for this to be degraded. The scenic road designation was put in place to preserve the natural beauty of Woodstock. We purchased our house in part because it was on a dirt road, which allows for more privacy, less traffic that moves at a slower pace, and provides natural beauty. My family walks on the road on a regular basis and thoroughly enjoys the surroundings. With a proposed change of double chip seal, which visibly looks like pavement, it will eliminate the natural beauty of the road, increase traffic, and allow vehicles to travel at a faster pace. Faster traffic on this road is a major safety concern, as many kids as young as 5th grade walk independently to and from the school to stop at the end of the road. The proposal and original complaint letter makes several claims without merit. There were few facts and no quoted studies mentioned, but a lot of opinion, which are not even from a Center Cemetery resident. As someone who's lived on this road since 2016, we know that with a dirt road comes compromises. Compromises we be willing to accept as the benefits far outweigh the negatives. During the mud season, as stated in the proposal, when the road becomes more difficult to drive on, the town drops 1.25-inch stone or gravel to combat the problem, as per the Scenic Road Maintenance and Improvements Manual, which solved the issue. During the entire time we've lived here, I've driven a 2015 Toyota Sienna two-wheel drive with low clearance, not a four-wheel drive vehicle. On a daily basis, I pull out of my driveway and head towards County Road. I have never gotten stopped due to the quality of the road. Last year, we had an unfortunate incident where we had to call an ambulance to our house. It arrived safely and quickly. We can also attest that other emergency vehicles have been called to our road, and those too arrived in a safe and timely manner. I understand the complaint of the Woodstock Center Cemetery Association, as water flow can leave an undesired ditch. However, the town could fix the erosion and sediment problem with improved drainage using conservations, again, as per the Scenic Road Maintenance and Improvements Manual. This would help eliminate the erosion and the proposal claims is affecting the wetlands. It would also preserve the wetlands by preventing oil and other chemicals of the proposed double chip seal coated with oil from running into our wetlands. I would like to request there be a cost analysis of the current proposal. With it should be a comparison of what it would cost the town to just fix the drainage. My questions are, if the cemetery is the main concern, why does part 2 of the proposal exist and extend all the way to the east side of 130, which happens to be directly across from our house, when we've never had drainage issues this high on the road? Also, when was the last time the town updated the catch basins to improve their drainage? And why shouldn't we be trying to preserve as much of the scenic beauty of the road as possible, meanwhile keeping it safer for the kids to walk on to and from the school bus stop? I strongly oppose this, as I feel like there's not enough factual evidence or cost analysis to show a positive change for the residents of the Center Cemetery or Woodstock as a whole. Meanwhile, it's destroying the natural beauty and safety of the road.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, please state your name for the record. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. John Gregorzi, 145 Center Cemetery Road. My wife just spoke. So I just like to speak to, I know that it's one of the main concerns that's been brought up several times, the safety issue, and I appreciate that, the emergency vehicles. I can tell you from a perspective that's unlike many other in the room, there may be some that are like me, obviously, but I've been a first responder for over 15 years now. State police, that's mainly in this area. I've never had an issue driving in on the road. My wife just talked about the two-wheel drive vehicles that we have. They're definitely, quote unquote, mud season, whatever that even means, or when it exists. Obviously, there's mud on the road. Again, we've never had any issues. I've been called, obviously, to and from emergency calls from my house. I've never heard a complaint from any other first responder about their inability to get their fire trucks up there. There may be an issue with the road. I understand that. But not once have I heard a complaint from them that their vehicles are probably more durable than I'd also like to say that, economically, I think it's kind of improper to be spending money on something in such a higher time when inflation is hitting such a peak right now. I think that, again, my wife was requesting cost analysis. I think that's appropriate given the circumstances. What's the maintenance? Obviously, we have contracts out. Leads me to believe that we don't have to maintain that road. So, how long is that going to take? And what's the cost benefit analysis compared to the gravel we have to drop every day? The other thing, obviously, that I think was brought up by the Conservation Commission and others, environmental impact, obviously. A concern for us, and I think the newest resident on the street also brought up something that's a little concerning. The property values themselves. Luckily, everybody had their nice assessments. Last year we were feeding the market. I'm sure we'll second about that. But I feel like property values may be decreased because the road, the changes to the road. My also concern is that we have a conservation easement on our property itself. I know they're saying that there may not be an extension or a width widening in the road itself, but I somewhat question that. But just judging by the way you have to pass roads, I mean, obviously I drive there every single day. We pretty much have to pull inside of the road for another car to pass you, which I'm totally fine. But I do believe that the double chip seal is used. Inevitably, you probably have to widen the road because otherwise you'll be driving in a ditch by trying to fall to the side of the road. I also believe, again, I think it's kind of silly to say that cars won't drive fast when I know it's chip seal road. Again, I can pretty much speak from experience that that's even, anecdotally, if you think you're driving from a dirt road and you change to a paved road to a dirt road, you automatically slow down. You can think, put it in your head, they drive on a pole, the other day. Everybody slows down on the dirt road. Again, that's our main concern. It's the reason we bought this property. I'm sure many of the residents, I see many of my fellow neighbors here. I'm glad to see them here supporting or taking the other side. But I think that's one of the main concerns against everyone. I see, not just people on our road, but I see daily walkers, and they walk in the middle of the road because it's such a safe road to walk on. And it's not really a cut through because it's not a convenient road to go on. I also think that, the property values is another issue, but safety of the kids is obviously the most important thing that we're doing. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak who has not had an opportunity yet? Thank you for coming tonight. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Jean Marcy. I don't live on Center Cemetery, but I do have friends and relatives on Center Cemetery. And I can attest to when the road was graded just the first week in October, I was staying there for the week. And I'll admit, I did speed up a little bit more knowing that the road was graded, so I didn't have to watch out for as many potholes. Whereas normally I do drive really slowly and really carefully because of the potholes. But my question is because as stated, cars do need to pull over because the road is narrow. What is going to happen with the side of this chip seal as cars continually have to pull over and ride along the edge of the chip seal?
Mr. Navarro, do you have any answer to that?
There'll still be gravel on the edge of the road.
But won't it pull away the chip seal from the actual, I mean, it's not like
I don't think it really affected it at all.
You don't think or you know?
I don't think it will affect it at all.
Thank you. Delia, I'll recognize you next.
I think that it would be a good idea if the commission considered having design professionals, your consulting engineer review this. However, we don't have a plan to send them right now. So leave that up to you to decide.
It sounds like there's two parts to that. One is mentioning about having a plan or something that can be shown. The road, what the plan shows on the road. The second part of that, which would follow, would be whether or not we want to have design professionals. Although we do have the highway department foreman's expertise in what the proposal is, but it sounds like the first part really would be whether or not to get a plan. I'll open that up to Mr. Navarro. Is there a drawing or anything schematic on the road to show?
There is no drawing. I can come up with a drawing myself. I could have an engineer do it if that's something you want, but that's gonna cost money.
But if you were to have a plan, at least something visual presented to us without an engineer, for example, that's
I
something.
can do that. I've done that before.
And then one could see without having an engineer, for example, to show where on the road things are and what things are being talked. I know we have pictures, but as far as, I'll open up to the commission, you had raised that. So I'll open up to what the commission feels they'd like to have. You know, if we were to get that, we'd have to get it during a public meeting. We'd have to continue the public hearing. Our next meeting is in 2 weeks. I don't know how much time you would need to put something together.
Just trying to do something within 2 weeks.
We have. So they can also ask for extension. Yeah, so that's not a problem from our statutory timeline. There's a timeline we have to follow by state statute as far as how long to keep this public hearing open and when to make decisions. So we were just looking on that. We have more than enough time to make certain. But I'll open up to the commission. Does the commission feel it would like to see a quote unquote plan? Joe?
Sure, I think that's a great idea, not only for the commission to attach to the application package, but also for the residents to see what is actually being described and installed. So yeah, a hand written, drawn sketch or drawing of what's being designed. Good idea.
And again, you'd be able to do that without having to go through an expense of an engineer to the town, be able to at least show us something then.
Yeah.
As far as what's being discussed.
Certainly.
Okay.
And that could incorporate the pullout by the dry hydrant.
And flag where
detail on that.
And flag where the dry hydrant is.
Yeah, okay.
And then that way we have more of a visual and can see.
Sure, I can do that.
Where things are. So whether or not the commission then decides it wants to do anything beyond that for review, I think the first step would seem to be then to get something like that. And then we would take it from there. Go accordingly. Okay. Thoughts from the rest of the commission? Unless anybody, commission objects, we don't have to take a vote on that. We can certainly ask you to put something together for us.
Sure, no problem.
Delia?
So if you decide that you want a plan, do you want me to send it to design professionals? Because we'll save a lot of time if I send it as soon as I receive it. Otherwise, we'll be waiting for another month and then the days available to review it tick by.
How about design professionals as a site walk with John? Plan together.
Well, let me ask John, when you, I know, but when you have an engineer, who do you use?
I would most likely use J&D.
Reason we're mentioning design professionals, that tends to be who we work with.
Mhm.
When we're reviewing, as you know, public improvements that a contractor is proposing, for example, or stuff.
I'll gladly meet and walk the road with them, come up with a design if you're putting the bill for the design.
Well, the question comes to us, number one, do we feel we need that? To have design professionals, you know, this is an application coming from the town. the town is proposing it. Different from, say, a contractor proposing something that we have to then accept as a public improvement that the town then takes on. This is something emanating from the town itself for the proposal.
Well, the town can draw up a plan.
I guess the issue is, do we feel we need to be sending it to design professionals versus you're sending us a proposal and you're sending us maps and plans? Tim?
It just seems that John's been through this before. He mentioned the Child Dome, which is a steep mud issue. There was a lot of mud issues on Child Dome. Those have been rectified. The steep grade has been rectified. It looks good. It gets really heavy use traffic, heavy traffic that goes over it. And then there's been other roads that have had serious mud issues. He's done flat roads, muddy roads, steep roads. It seems to me that the town pretty much knows what they're doing when they're doing this. It's not that this has not been done before. It has been. It's the grade coming off has been done before. I'm sure you would have pointed out that with the gravel and the chip seal meets, we've had issues and we've rectified them. That hasn't been a problem. So this seems to be a rather foolproof way of kind of meeting in the middle between pavement and constantly maintaining gravel. So I think him coming up with a plan is as far as I'm concerned, is suffice.
Any deed from any other commissioners, Joe?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think John can come up with a plan for us now. If in the future, it looks like the drainage that's proposed is not working and it needs to be something much more extensive, then we could get a engineering firm involved. But for this part of the job, I can't see it.
Now, for me individually, I would agree. I think we can certainly right now rely upon your expertise. I can visualize the road. I've been up that road a number of times, especially recently, to review some of the stuff that has been proposed. But I think it would be helpful to at least have something more visual to show. I think it would help the public as well better understand what's being discussed, what's being proposed, concerns raised, that type of thing of the road.
Okay.
Would you be able, our next meeting in the commission will have to vote to continue this public hearing. The next meeting we have is in 2 weeks. I don't want to rush you.
No,
I know you're busy. Do you feel that's adequate time to get?
Yeah, I
things
can
to-
look at something.
Our meeting packets tend to go out, when do you send them out? Send them out.
One week prior.
But yeah, usually we get them out a week prior, so we all have a chance to review them, and then the documents get put up online. So the public can see them.
Right.
Would that give you enough time?
Yeah, I can get something to Delia and Dan by next week.
Okay. Otherwise, our next meeting is when's the first Thursday of December after that. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you feel you can do it.
No, I can do that.
We can consider what to do, as far as having to continue this. But Joe?
Not related to the drawing, but just to the public hearing and listening to the public. Again, the part of this, when I spoke at the beginning, was that the Center Cemetery Association asked to do something to deal with the cemetery issue. The next proposal, phase 2, covers a lot more ground. And I was hoping to have the public here to hear what people who actually live on the road, what they feel they want to see with Center Cemetery Road. Getting almost a half and half kind of sense that some support chip sealing as proposed by John Navarro, and some not at all. If the issue really was initiated by the Cemetery Association and the problems they have going up to the cemetery and are getting into the cemetery field itself, be more inclined to at least look at what phase 1 as the next step in trying to address Cemetery Association's problem and some of the drainage issues on the road. If there are more people who show up at another public hearing, that might be interesting to get residents who live on the road. hear more about what they.
And I agree with you about wanting to hear from people. I don't live on this road,
Right.
Many years as chairing this commission, I think I've traveled nearly every road in one fashion or another or seen them. It's one thing for us to know the roads when we go to them, and I've spent extra time to go to this road to see it, to refresh myself of it, walk it and drive it. But it's certainly something different when you hear from people on the road. But also hearing from you, Mr. Navarro, having to maintain the road and where things stand from the town's perspective. So I know there are the two phases. And even though it's all in one application, one can see both phases. That will be on whatever map or plan, so you can see what's being proposed in the phase one, what's being proposed in the phase two. And then we can, go accordingly, with that. So we wanted me to remind, so we have it on the record that the date of receipt of the application was September 22nd. We're keeping track of the timeline anyway, so which is fine. Was there anything from any other member of the public who has not yet had a chance to speak for the first time? Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record. Thank you for being here tonight.
Brendan Owens, 147 Center Cemetery Road. I also love the character of the road, and I think the town has been doing a reasonably good job maintaining it. It's a dirt road, and it gets trashed and it gets muddy and it gets potholes and it does slow people down. And usually people aren't gonna just go that way to get somewhere unless they're going somewhere on the road for the most part. So that really helps keep traffic down and make it a safe road for kids and families and everything. Again, the town has been doing a reasonable job, even though it has its issues. So I just assume keep it the way it is. Given the scope of this proposal, it just seems like there's a lot missing. We talked about drawings. I would love to see some kind of engineering taking it to a next level. We're talking about drainage and paving the road, adding parking for the cemetery. There's a lot going on here. It's a large section of the road. I understand that incurs a lot of cost, but maybe it's cost that doesn't need to happen in the first place if we didn't do this project. But if it does have, the project does have to happen, all of that should probably happen too. And I think there's another element that's really missing here, and that's some kind of data regarding the traffic on the road. I don't know if any kind of traffic study has actually been done. I've never seen any kind of counter on the road. And I'm 100% positive that once the surface is improved to this level, the traffic is going to increase, the speed of that traffic is going to increase. And so to have some kind of data in place to say, well, this is what it used to be when it was just a nice little dirt road. Now that it's, paved, a lot of it, 2/3 of the road is chip seal, which basically looks like pavement to me. It's definitely going to increase the traffic and the speed that people are traveling. Most people drive around 15 to 25, except for even the FedEx trucks. So few, and also about more than 2/3 of all the residents on our road live on the 1/3 of the road that isn't part of this proposal. So all of those cars, I'll speak for myself, but I think a lot of people too, when the road is in really bad condition, I don't even use that part of the road unless I'm going directly to East Woodstock or there's really no better way to go. But even in that case, I'll go back around and use 197 and take the highway instead of taking the really bad part of the road in the winter, because everyone on that side of the road heads east towards Center Road. That's what Carl was saying, that part of the road does stay in pretty good condition. I agree. It's on the north facing side of the hill. And it doesn't nearly have the kind of mud problems that the other section does. So my point being, the majority of the traffic on the road goes the other way. It doesn't use a lot of the road that's being proposed to improve. These are considerations, and I'd love to see some data on the traffic now to have something to go by in the future. If it ended up being more of a problem because all the money was spent improving the road, but now the traffic's increased and the speed's increased, so it's causing all of those upgrades to deteriorate faster. That may be something that would have to be addressed in the future. So see it as definitely as a double-edged sword here.
Thank you. Is there anything from anybody else who hasn't had a chance yet to speak? Anything from commissioners? Want to make sure I'm not missing commissioners on No. If there's nothing else from commissioners, in order for us to get a map, plan, whatever, we're gonna have to continue the public hearing. We'll have to take a vote on that. Our next meeting is on the 17th. We usually schedule public hearings for 7:45. I usually don't make motions.
Move that we continue the public hearing to November 17 at 7:45 PM.
And remember, we're changing the clock, so we want to make it.
It's going to be 7:45.
7:45, the new time, no matter whether or not people change their clocks.
I'll second.
Second. Okay. So motion by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Mark Wagner to continue this public hearing to Thursday, November 17th, 2022 at 7:45 PM. Any discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none, I'm going to go through the roll. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Wagner.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Markov.
Aye.
David Moore.
Aye.
Joe Frulik.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And Timothy Young. Aye. Without objection, that so passes. The public hearing is continued. Thank you, everybody, for attending. This is why we have public hearings, so we can hear from people. So it helps us do our work better, and this public hearing will reopen in 2 weeks. At this point, since we're getting close to 10 o'clock, I don't know if the commission really wants to get into, I'll just ask people. Just keep your conversations down or talk outside. We have to continue the rest of tonight's meeting. Thank you. All right. Okay. Everybody, please just take your conversations outside, so that way we thank you. So at this point, in the hour, I'm assuming, does the commission really then want to get into items 5 and 6 at this point in time? We're not gonna have much time. Really, no.
I don't people here first.
Well, we hear about Airbnb, that's, at this point, we've been hearing about this topic. I don't know if there's anything new that people wish to tell us that we haven't already heard at the past 2 meetings. Otherwise, this is a topic that we're aware of and we're waiting for zoning enforcement. Did you have something new that you haven't already told us at the past 2 meetings?
Yeah, it's mostly a question. I thought I heard you ask Delia to find out what some of the other towns were doing.
Can you just state your name for the record, please?
Brian Victor.
I thought that was gonna come up at our business meeting,
Right, I thought that was coming up at the next meeting.
the monthly meeting.
It's not available for this meeting.
And we also have to be able to get stuff back from the listserv. Hear from other towns. So my understanding is we don't have anything yet compiled.
No, not yet.
Right. So, is there anything else on this matter? Otherwise, there is going to be stuff that will be rediscussed at our monthly business meeting. Yes, do you have something new that you wish to add? that we
Other than
haven't
the
heard
comment
already?
on the deal is Jose Macho from
Yep.
Beaver Dam. I have researched a number of towns, municipalities regarding the laws. Some of the Council of Municipal Governments have done a very good job on that, particularly in Lower Fairfield County. And I have a listing of about 20 towns, basically up-to-date status as to where they are on short-term rental, either zoning or regulations on that topic. So I'd be happy to share that if you would like.
Please send it in. I would send it into the land use department and to Delia. So thank you. Anything else on this?
I just have a quick question.
Yes, please state your name for the record.
Kathleen Ellison, Lower Level Drive. In your zoning definitions, commercial use is an occupation, employment, or enterprise that is carried on for profit. Does that mean a bed and breakfast or a country inn are considered a commercial use?
Delia or Dan, although you dealt with this in the past, Delia, as far as how we regulate it.
They'd be considered businesses, yes.
Thank you.
I don't believe we regulate it in any different way. Considering
In
it
the,
business.
in the past,
Business.
bed and breakfast were considered commercial.
Which is considered a commercial business in home occupation.
Yes, we do designate that differently in our regulations than just something that does fall under residential as far as it's a home occupation. We do make that distinction.
You just, that is a commercial use.
Yeah, that's how it's been
Correct.
regulated. in a sense.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on this? Otherwise, we do have our monthly business meeting where we will be bringing things back up as far as. Do you have something new to add? Because I know you've already spoken. What question do you have?
Question for Dan.
Just state your name again for the record.
Brian
Catcher.
Hector. What's the status on the letters? I think I heard you say that one come back or those 15 days. Could you bring us up to date? What happens?
Well, we already did update that earlier in the meeting.
I did have a letter returned, and I did have one recipient of a letter talk to me about achieving compliance. It's a process. I gave them all the information at my disposal, and they're out of town is my understanding, and they hope to address that when they get back from their vacation. The person that had the return mail, I have to find a legitimate working address for them that wasn't the first one that I got. But I have to go, I got the mail returned to me my last shift, and I have to readdress the letter after researching the appropriate address for this person. Sometimes the town records are not immediately perfect. I used the record from that was provided on their NECOG GIS. The next address I'm going to search for is in our vision database. And if that one is the same as the one that got returned, I have to do even deeper legwork. But I have to make sure that they have received that my initial outreach. And if the 15 days elapses and I don't have that mail returned, then I can proceed down the enforcement track.
And I would just say, if people have any more questions about anything that's going on with the zoning enforcement, I would just advise contact Dan at the land use department.
Yeah, I do have to apologize for the phones. They are ringing incessantly, and I am only out there on Tuesdays, Thursdays. I do have some part-time help. And it's a triage mission to accommodate the inquiries, the permits, and for the 3 different commissions that our offices help to administer.
Well, thank you, Dan. But I'll just say that there's a limit to what we can do in this regard with the zoning enforcement at a commission meeting, because we do have to let Dan, as the zoning enforcement officer, do what he is required to do. So right now, we'll let this go. It's going to come up at our next meeting when we hear more as part of your zoning enforcement report. See where we are, but right now, we do have to let him do what he needs to do. So there's a limit to what we can do as a commission, since we can't be interfering right now with you doing your active investigation, and then we'll get some up. I'll recognize you only if you have something new, and I'll give you 1 minute. Otherwise,
thank you.
some of this stuff does need to be brought to Dan as the zoning enforcement officer. But what do you have that's new that you wish to present to
Jeff,
us?
just a quick question to help me and clarify for some of us. In some of my research, some of the towns have looked at this issue as a zoning issue. Other towns have looked at it as an ordinance issue.
One has to be careful. There are certain rules about what types of zoning matters are not allowed to go to town meeting. And what can and cannot be done via an ordinance. One thing to keep in mind is that if it's done via an ordinance, then that's not so much a matter for the Planning and Zoning Commission. That goes through a different process. But you need to be careful, because there are state laws that talk about what can and cannot for zoning go to town meetings. The whole reason there are planning and zoning commissions is not to take these matters to a town meeting, but to actually have elected officials on a planning and zoning commission handle it. That actually goes to the very nature of the enabling acts that were put into place in the 1920s by the feds, as far as how they view the schema. So ordinances are a whole separate process. So zoning happens usually through zoning regulations. So changing zoning regulations, I've spoken to this before, it does not happen overnight. There's a legal process we have to follow, a timeline we have to follow. That's a separate process from anything a zoning enforcement officer has to do, investigating a complaint or potential violation. They're two different tracks. Thank you. So I'm assuming, did you have something more here?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that Woodstock's no longer contracting for the GIS. They're gonna do their own separate contracts, so
Okay.
I'm not sure when that will take place, but the NECOG map will be updated in the future.
And we'll go accordingly as far as how to get updated maps. So, Joe?
Just a real quick question for Dan on the home occupation revised application. I know you're busy, just wondering if it's getting revised and putting online.
I sent it to you.
You sent it to me. I did work to improve some of those typographical and some formatting concerns that I worked to. I did disseminate it to a few people who have asked for it, but I haven't yet uploaded it to the website.
Okay.
And I can do that very easily.
Great. Took a quick look at it. It was
Yep.
online. It was still that.
Okay.
Good. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I figured you would have to do whatever formatting and whatever to make it fit for the type of.
All that information does fit on one page now, and that's kind of the goal with the form is that, especially if we have to reproduce this form for meetings.
Yes.
I don't, my copier is not, doesn't do double-sided variants. It's kind of archaic in that sense, but a one-sided form is especially helpful for everybody.
And that's fine. Unless there's anything else, right now, we would then have a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
I'll second.
A motion by Timothy Young, seconded by Mark Lackner to adjourn the meeting. I'll go through the roll call. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Lackner. Aye. Sid Blodgett. Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Markle. David Moore.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Doug's not seated. Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
Timothy Young.
Aye.
Without objection, we are so adjourned at whatever time you have.
10:03.
Thank you, everybody. We will reconvene in.